All right, welcome to Nittany Game Week bonus content. And I love these kinds of things because we get to talk a little bit more in depth about some of the points that we want to make on the show. It's a 30-minute window. We always have a lot more to say, and so do our viewers. We get some viewer questions submitted. And I love this part of it, Jay, because there's some memorabilia out there with Tom's play sheets. So tell me about this, and then you're going to have to explain what it is.
Well, apparently, Bill, he sent an email, said, I saw an old Tom Bradley play sheet for sale. There was a call on it. NFD, Scranton, Go, Jim, Jill. Now, I know that N stands for nickel and FD stands for field. And you got to realize when you're on a call sheet on Saturday, you got to get that all in the box. So you have to really cut things down. So N is nickel, FD is field. So go ahead.
So everything in our package was, cities were zone blitzes.
Yep.
They were all 5-man pressure. So I know for a fact the signal for Scranton was the S on my hat. I just would point to the S on my hat. Hence, in Scranton, you have the letters S and N. You follow, right? So we had other blitzes called Buffalo, Backer, and Fritz, you know. We had Seattle, Sam in the end. You know, there was all the letters meant something, unless, and this is where it got, we want to get certain things in, and Coach Paterno might think we had too many. So what we would do is we would name them like Bronx, okay, or Brooklyn, and then the guys would say, well, none of those letters match up. And I said, well, this is so we can get in with Coach Paterno, Bronx and Brooklyn. And the one day he did tell me this. He said, now, if you come up with the Queens blitz, I'm on to you.
Yeah, he knows.
The old New York background.
Yeah, well,
Look,
you couldn't get much past them.
But we joke, though, it's really like I was talking with Kobe King and also Tyler Elson earlier. It's like a homework. You know, this is a class. You got to, and you got to drill this stuff in, and it becomes natural, second nature to these guys. What? How many weeks into the season or through camp? Or I mean, they have to know this type of stuff, right?
Yeah, well, people don't realize when you come in from high school, you know that a curl flat combination is something you call it in high school. When you then come to college, now it's a different name. And for the first several weeks, if not 2 months, you're just like if you were learning a new language, this means this in German or whatever it is, and you're constantly reverting it back. So that's always a challenge, is when do they become fluent in your language?
Yeah.
And that's the hard just like you brought it up, because you said about the Jill, Jack, and Jim. Well, Jack we always had in the playbook as a strong spin down. Jill was a weak spin down, and Jim, J-I-M, middle spin down. You get it now?
Yeah.
So all the letters meant something. They weren't just picked out of the blue. So it was easier to get the younger guys ready to play sooner, that they had a system.
And get ready to play instinctively instead of being bogged down, by thinking.
And
you want
fast.
to get
You want them to play fast and not think, really. You know, they want it to be second nature. If you get them playing fast, that's half the battle.
Well, in 2005, one of the things we did that cheated was we put our playbook on memory cards for Madden. So we had all these freshman wideouts running around, and we put all of our terminology on a Madden play card. So they used our playbook. So every time they played Madden, they were conversing in and it really accelerated.
Well, and people, those games really advance it
no question,
even still.
No
All right, so we got the next one. Or a comment or a
comment. I think this is more of a comment from James. He said, we need more screen passes to the running backs. I think because they're younger and they're freshmen, that'll come as time goes. Because, again, they've got to, first of all, run the ball. They've got to also do pass protection. Now you can start to do some things. But there's no question with the pass rush, that'll help. One
of the things with screens is, there's a knack to a back running a good screen. Is he too quick? Is he too slow? It takes time. That's something he has to get used to how to do it. Because if you give it away too soon, it's not worth it.
Yeah, an offensive lineman as well, and the chemistry that goes with that. Now, if you're going to see it,
because
you might see it. If you're going to see it, you might see it against Michigan.
Yeah.
Because they really came at Clifford last year.
Yeah.
Take some of the
pressure
off.
And your offensive line, usually those bump screens, there's a 2 count or a 3 count. And we had a freshman offensive lineman in practice, and the defensive tackle kept reading the screens, and we were calling in practice. Said, how do you know? He goes, because this freshman lineman gets 1,001, 1,002, and then releases. And he was counting out loud.
Yeah.
So you can't do that.
Wait, let's back up here. So that's like when you guys would go against you and you knew the signals across the field.
Well, yeah, but that's different than a guy counting out loud.
They would know, oh, here comes the Seattle.
See, this is what you get is you get the back and forth between these two. They still know how it
Okay, let's
works.
get on to Mark. Now, Mark wants to know how big a business has NIL mushroomed into. Apparently, there's no minimum age group that can benefit from NIL. I've been consulting in the NIL stuff for a couple of years now, even before it became you know, after the law in California was passed. So I've seen a bunch of this all over the place. It's going to get bigger and bigger until there is some kind of national legislation or at least some definition of what it means. But the point he is making is getting younger. The PIAA now allows NIL in high school. And the advice I would give to every parent is, first of all, take care of your schoolwork before you worry about NIL. Second of all, take care of how good a football player or basketball player, whatever sport it is you may be, because if you're not a great player, it's not going to matter how you're following. And third, then worry about NIL stuff and those kind of things.
Do you get the same calls I get? Hey, Scrap, how much do you think I'd be worth today? Yeah. Like, I'm not going to mention names. I get the calls all the time. Hey, how much do you really think I'd be worth today?
Well,
not as much as you think you are.
Well, and you mentioned that. A lot of what's going to happen, too, is the businesses that invest in NIL are going to do an ROI on it. They're going to do, what's my return on investment? Now, some of them are going to want to be involved because they want their name attached to the name of the university or the program and that type of, and they just want to help. They have some discretionary funds to put out there to do that. The ones that are typically doing it as a business deal that want to see some return on investment, name branding, that type of stuff, will do an evaluation to see if it's effective or not.
So and the market will shake out
absolutely
before it all comes down. Next one is, how do we keep this one came up last week. How do we keep our tight ends involved in the pass game? A couple things. I think the question is, if you're playing Penn State, who is the number one receiver? Who's the guy that if they get into trips, you say, we got to keep somebody backside? I don't know that guy's emerged yet that scares you. They may have it, but he just has not emerged yet. Because the minute you force that save, the minute we get that safety to move over and help on the backside or help away from the tight end, now you can't double up the tight ends. Right now, if you're looking at Penn State's pass game, the guys that would scare me most are the tight end group. They're getting the big plays.
Being on defense, that's the one guy that drives you crazy. If they have a great tight end, they can do a lot of things. They can flex him out. He can be an inline blocker, play action, and you have to account for him at all times because that can be a real mismatch, as you know, especially if you start to play some man free. And you can flex him out. That big body on a little DB or however you're going to match it up. That's a problem because what personnel are they in now? Are they in 21? Are they in 11? I mean, how do you account for him and what is he?
And this week's show, for the television side, we showed a lot of highlights from the Purdue game just before the half. Brenton Strange gets what seems like an innocent pass, catches it, breaks off a couple of guys, smaller defensive backs, and he's gone for the touchdown right before the half, which was a huge momentum shift in that game. Right now, he probably creates the biggest mismatch when you're talking about young linebackers for Michigan. Haven't seen a lot of Tyler Warren. Last year, they were doing some stuff in the Wildcat, trying to throw. You never know what's going to come up, especially when you got 2 weeks to come up with something. So if they think they have one of the best tight end rooms in the country, this is a way to get them involved. This is the kind of game that you have to get them involved to potentially walk away.
It's just not a linebacker on them. You get a nickel that's a mismatch sometimes on the nickel. Is it because a lot of times that's why you see people go to what I call half players, half a nickel, half a linebacker because of that matchup, body-wise. Okay, now that's always gets to be a problem, speed-wise, body-wise. That's a tough matchup. If you have a great tight end and you can move him and do things with him, it's really hard. I think what's even more difficult is when they take the tight end who also play him at fullback too. They bring him back and make him a fullback. You get 11 personnel, and oh, geez, now they got a lead back. It's hard stuff. Tight ends are a valuable commodity.
And I think the thing is, from an offensive standpoint, if I've got that number one receiver and you've got to take a safety and help, now I'm 9 on 8 if we have 2 running backs. I've got 9 people that are there. You've got 3 people covering 2 of mine. Now we start to even the numbers out. If it's one back, now it's 8 on 7. And the minute I get the numbers in my favor, especially if you have a quarterback that can run, now it's really in your favor. A guy like Clifford, if they can get Michigan to take people or whoever they're playing down the road to take a guy away from the ball to help on a receiver, opens up the tight end, but also opens up your run game. So that's something to watch as Penn State goes down the season. Which wideout is going to emerge as that guy? Because when you had Dotson, you had to pay attention to him, no question. I haven't seen that guy yet. May happen.
But you brought up the great point is, okay, now this is where your front 4 come into play. If you got a darn good front 4, you'll get the 9 on 8. You'll be okay because those front 4 can handle they make up for a lot of problems in the outer part of the shell.
This is the window into our world. I love listening to you guys talk about it. It's a lot of fun. We're reaching that point in the season where everybody saw it on the schedule. These 3 weeks at Michigan, third road game in that first half of the season. They won the first two. Then the whiteout at home against Minnesota and then home against Ohio State. What is this going to look like in a little over 2 weeks? Because the 3 games are going to happen in a little over 2 weeks. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right?
We hope.
It's going to be fun
The
watching.
optimist tells me that
I
they'll be
hope
all
so
right.
too. I hope so too. Anything else you guys want to add?
No, I'm good.
That's all the
Good to
bonus.
go.
That's all the inside we're giving them this week.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for joining us. A little extra content at NittanyGameWeek.com.